Psalm 122. If Psalm 121, which we thought about yesterday, was about the psalmist's journey to the temple in Jerusalem, Psalm 122 is about the psalmist's arrival there. If yesterday's psalm was about the uncertainty of travelling, Psalm 122 is about the safety of arriving. Just as yesterday's psalm focused on the word keep, the Lord will keep you, today's psalm focuses on the word peace, peace be within you. Perhaps both psalms are allusions to the blessing in Numbers 6, to which we referred yesterday. May the Lord bless you and keep you and give you his peace. When I spoke about these psalms as part of our ministry away day last Tuesday, we had the text in front of us. So, as I suggested yesterday, you might find it easy to stop this video for a moment and find the psalm in a Bible. It's Psalm 122, and I'm going to use the New Revised Standard Version. As I did yesterday, I'll now read it right through to give you a sense of what it's all about. A Song of Ascents of David. I was glad when they said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord." Our feet are standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem, built as a city that is bound firmly together. To it the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, as it was decreed for Israel, to give thanks to the name of the Lord. For there the thrones of judgment were set up, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they prosper who love you. Peace be within your walls and security within your towers. For the sake of my relatives and friends, I will say, peace be within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your good. The heading to the psalm is not just a song of ascents, but unusually it adds of David. The Hebrew can mean for David or in David's memory. It serves to remind us that we are now in Jerusalem, the city of David, where this psalmist, at least for now, feels secure. He's about to enter the temple courts, which are part of the house of David, in verse 5. Yesterday, we heard about the psalmist's feet stumbling on the way. Today, in Psalm 122, in verse 2, we read that his feet are now firmly standing within the gates of the city of Jerusalem. Yesterday, we heard of the psalmist being alone with God, probably speaking to himself. Today, he's with a company of worshippers in the house of God, seeing the various tribes going up to the Temple Mount to give thanks to the name of the Lord. Our psalmist has once experienced the pain of isolation. Now he has entered the community of faith. There are some assurances for us here. Isolation is temporary. Let's look at the structure of the psalm as we did for Psalm 121 yesterday. It begins and ends with the house of the Lord in verses 1 and 9. The house of the Lord refers to the temple, which is in the heart of the city. The psalm has several images of the city itself and its military defenses. Its gates, in verse 2. Its being built firm as a city, in verse 3. Its walls and towers, in verse 7. But more important than all this is the house of the Lord, which starts and ends the psalm. Our ministry away day was on the theme of the needs of our church and our parish. I chose this psalm, with its emphasis on the temple in the heart of the city, to give us a model of how the church here in Jericho lies at the heart of the parish, Jericho. It is our house of the Lord. From just a week ago, things are so different now. Our church is now silent. That sense of peace and well-being which we read in this psalm seems far away. But the house of the Lord is still here. Even coronavirus cannot destroy the physical church, and it certainly cannot destroy the faith of those who have worshipped in it and who will one day will return to it. But there is more than this. We noted earlier that the key theme in this psalm is peace. This is found in verse 6, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Verse 7, peace be within your walls. And verse 8, for the sake of my relatives and friends, I say, peace be within you. The word Jerusalem occurs 3 times in verses 2 and 3 and 6. Jerusalem means in Hebrew, city of peace. So the psalmist prays that it might live up to its name. Praying for peace lies at the heart of the psalm. Peace for ourselves, peace for others. Psalm 122 has a relevance for us right now. History has made it clear that Jerusalem has actually never been a consistent channel of God's peace. The temple, the house of the Lord, was actually destroyed twice, and it was never rebuilt. So, although this might appear to be a confident psalm, it was used later to speak about faith under siege. Small wonder Christian writers like St. Augustine preferred to think of Jerusalem and the house of the Lord as about a heavenly city. So, this is a positive and upbeat psalm, but at its heart, it challenges believers to make their place of worship a place of healing and peace for others. Yesterday, I invited you to reflect on an image of Psalm 121 by the French artist Ben, whose book has images of all 150 psalms. Today, I invite you to consider Ben's very simple visual interpretation of Psalm 122. He gives us just 2 key symbols, each set against another dark and foreboding sky. The first image is of Jerusalem's city walls with its fortifications, and behind them, perhaps, the temple itself. The second image is of the dove, Yonah, symbol of peace, which flutters both within and outside the city walls. Contemplate this image of the dove and reflect on the challenge for each of us to work for peace, both in the church and in our parish. Yesterday, I used John Rutter's version of Psalm 121 to accompany your reflections. Today, for Psalm 122, I've chosen Hubert Parry's more rousing and majestic arrangement of this psalm. Parry composed this for the coronation of Edward VII in 1902. It was used for the coronation of George V in 1905 and sung at the wedding of Charles and Diana in 1981, and again at William and Kate's wedding in 2011. It offers us confidence and hope in the possibility of peace, both in our church and in our land. Our feet still stand in the city gates, even though for Parry the city was more probably London than Jerusalem. And here we pray, pray, and pray again for peace. At the end, as yesterday, I shall read another early collect on this psalm. Again, it takes the psalm through a Christian lens, seeing that the house of David is now the church of Christ, and that the prayer for peace applies to us all. O blessed Jesus, who didst descend according to thy human nature from the house of thy servant David, and hast planted a church, and defended it with a mighty hand and great assistances, be pleased to preserve peace within her walls. Take from her all schisms and divisions, that she may be like a city that is at unity within itself. That at last she may be removed to a fellowship of all those joys and felicities which are laid up for the inhabitants of the heavenly Jerusalem, which is from above, and is the mother of us all. Amen.